What if everything you think you know about the beginning is actually the middle of the story? Genesis 1 says God created the heavens and the earth. Then verse 2 hits like a record scratch, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Without form, void, darkness. That's not creation. That's collapse. Most people read Genesis like chapter 1 of a brand new book. But what if it's actually chapter 2? What if there was an entire world before Adam took his first breath? What if that world didn't end with Noah's flood? It ended long before that with a war so catastrophic that God had to start over from scratch. Here's the question almost nobody asks. Why would God create the earth in chaos? Isaiah 45:18 says it plainly, "For thus saith the Lord, that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it, he created it, not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited." But Genesis 1:2 describes the earth as tohu wa bohu, Hebrew for formless and empty, waste and desolation. That same word appears in Isaiah 34:11 and Jeremiah 4:23 to describe God's judgment, not creation, judgment. So if God doesn't create in vain, if he forms things to be inhabited, why is the earth in Genesis 1:2 a wasteland? What happened between verse 1 and verse 2? There's a theory called the gap theory, or the ruin reconstruction interpretation. It proposes something profound. Genesis 1 describes an original perfect creation, possibly billions of years ago. Then something catastrophic happened. God's judgment fell, leaving the earth ruined and dark. The state described in Genesis 1:2. Then in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. God recreates the earth for Adam. This wasn't fringe theologies. Clarence Larkin taught it. Arthur Pink taught it. Donald Gray Barnhouse taught it. G.H. Pember wrote about it in his 1876 work Earliest Ages. The Hebrew itself supports it. The word was in Genesis 1:2. Haya is the same word in Genesis 19:26, when Lot's wife became a pillar of salt. Not was, became. The earth became without form and void. It wasn't created that way. It became that way through judgment. Only one thing in Scripture carries that kind of weight. Only one being could cause God's perfect creation to collapse into darkness. Isaiah 14:12 tells us, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" Lucifer, the shining one, the son of the morning. Ezekiel 28:13-15 reveals his origin. "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee." He was perfect. He walked in the original Eden. He was the covering cherub, the most exalted created being in the universe. And then iniquity was found in him. Isaiah 14:13-14 gives us his rebellion. His 5 "I will" declarations echo through heaven. "I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." 5 rebellions against God. Verse 15 pronounces the verdict. "Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." Jesus confirmed it in Luke 10:18. "I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." The timeline matters enormously. Lucifer was created before Adam. Job 38:4-7 tells us the angels, the sons of God, shouted for joy when God laid the earth's foundation. The angels predate the earth. Lucifer predates Adam, and his fall, his war, his judgment. That is what happened between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. Not Noah's flood, not Adam's. It's in the catastrophic collapse of a pre-Adamic world destroyed by God's judgment, following Lucifer's rebellion. Now here's where it gets more fascinating. If there was a world before Adam, what was it like? Scripture gives us clues. 2 Peter 2:4 says, "For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness." angels who sinned before man ever existed, before Adam took his first breath. Jude 1:6 adds, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness." Their first estate, their original domain. Some scholars believe this points to a pre-Adamic order being assigned to govern the original earth, who followed Lucifer in rebellion. And the result? God's judgment fell. The earth became tohu wabohu, formless and void. Darkness covered the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the ruins. The Hebrew word is rakaf, like a bird hovering over a nest. Can you picture that moment? The most powerful created being in the universe looks at everything God made and says, "I want to be God." The Father who created him loved him, exalted him, watches as pride destroys his most glorious creature. Then silence, darkness over the deep, a ruined world awaiting restoration. But God doesn't abandon it. He hovers. He prepares to rebuild. Genesis 1:3 marks the turning point. And God said, "Let there be light." This isn't just creation. This is restoration. This is God saying, "I'm not done." Rebellion will not have the last word. I will build again. And what does he build? Something Lucifer never had. Something the angels never experienced. Genesis 1:26-27. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Not angels, not spirit beings. Man, flesh and blood, bearing the image of God himself. Ephesians 3:10 reveals the deeper purpose. The creation of the church, the redemption of man, was meant to be a demonstration to principalities and powers, a display of God's wisdom to the very beings who rebelled. God took the most broken, most fallen, most vulnerable creature, man, to showcase his glory to the rebel angels. That's not a footnote, that's the whole story. So why does this matter? Why does it matter whether there was a world before Adam? Because it changes how you understand your own existence. You weren't plan B. You weren't God's backup after the angels fell. You were the plan all along. Ephesians 1:4 says it plainly. He chose us in him before the foundation of the world. Before the foundation of the world, God knew Lucifer would rebel. He knew the earth would be ruined. He knew Adam would fall. But before any of it happened, he chose you. He planned your redemption before. He planned creation. Revelation 13:8 calls Jesus the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. The cross wasn't a crisis response. It was written into the architecture of the universe before the first atom of matter existed. You live in a world scarred by that ancient war. Satan still carries his original mission to steal, kill, and destroy. He knows what you are. He knows what you carry. He knows whose image you bear. And that's why he fights you so hard. You don't look like just a human to him. You look like the reason he lost. The first world didn't end with Noah's flood. It ended in the darkness before Adam, in the silence after Lucifer's fall, in the tohu wabohu of a ruined creation. But God hovered. God spoke. God rebuilt. And out of that ruin, he made you, not by accident, not as an afterthought, but as the centerpiece of a plan older than time itself. The enemy is ancient, but the one who chose you is eternal. He has never, not once, abandoned what he decided to restore. If this opened something in your understanding of Scripture, subscribe. We're just getting started. The next video goes deeper. Who were the Nephilim, and why did they appear before the flood and after it? That answer is going to shake your foundation of what you thought you knew. See you there.